Hi class, in this particular video we're going to show you how to determine the size of an angle using trigonometry. This is a bit different from previous sort of tasks you've done where you've been using an angle to try and find the length of a side. This time we're going to use the length of the two sides to find the angle. And to do this we still follow the previous steps that we've done in the previous exercises where we have our 5-step process, and the first one being find the active angle. And so we look at our triangle here, our example, and the angle is the angle that you're actually looking for. So you've just got to remember that sometimes it can be the angle you're looking for that is your active angle. In this case it's theta, and we use theta or some other sort of letter to denote that's the angle we're looking for. For step 2, we go through the same process as we do with any other trig issue, is we have to label the triangle with the sides hypotenuse, opposite and adjacent. So when we look at this particular triangle example here, we're still doing it in proportion to where theta is. And so the side opposite theta, of course, is your opposite angle. The side opposite the right angle is your hypotenuse, and the side next to theta is your adjacent. Which leads us then on to step 3, is where we use SOHCAHTOA. Now when I'm meaning SOHCAHTOA, we're using the mnemonic to figure out which function we're using. So if you remember for this one here, what you do is we've noticed we're using the opposite side and we're using the hypotenuse. And the opposite and the hypotenuse are part of the sine function. Sine equals opposite over hypotenuse. So we now then go on to step 4. And this is where we're going to use our ratio triangle, where you draw your ratio triangle and put the values in. So you'll notice here that I've got my ratio triangle. We're going to put our values in, just remembering that because we're using the sine, I'm just going to put SOH around the outside. And where the angle part goes, the sine, we put sine, but this time it's the sine of theta. And it's a little bit different how we're going to do our working for this, but we still put it in the part of the triangle here. The opposite side is 15 in this case, and the hypotenuse is 23. That's a 2. So from this point here we're going to go on to step 5 once we've done that, and we're going to show our working. And this is a little bit different from other sort of trig examples. When you're looking for a side, there is one extra little step, a little bit of algebra that you need to do. So we're looking for theta, or in this case it's the sine of theta. So that's from this part of our ratio triangle, and that equals 15, and in this case here divided by 23, because you've got to remember this line that goes across here, that's your division line. When you're trying to find the angle, I also tend to put this in brackets because some calculators can have a few issues if you don't. Not all calculators, but some do. What we now need to do is, because we're actually after just theta, we don't need the sine bit. We need to get rid of the sine bit because we just want to find out what theta equals, because that's the next line of working. We just want to know what theta equals because theta represents the angle. And so to do that we've got to move the sine across to the other side of the equation. But when we do that we've got to make a little change to it. It becomes sine to the power of -1, which is another way of saying the inverse sine. And then that's 15 over 23. Now doing this, looking for sine to the inverse or the inverse sine on your calculator, it's usually just above your sine button. So when you look for the sine button, look on the calculator and you'll notice just above it, it says sine to the -1. You've got to press the shift or the function key or something like that to access it. And if we do that on our calculators, the inverse sine of 15 divided by 23, we end up with 40.7 degrees. Now with angles, we typically only, for degrees anyway, we typically only work to 1 decimal place. So you only need it to do it 1 decimal place, and don't forget the degree symbol. You really need that. And that is how you work through finding an angle using trigonometry.